Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Today I'm reading Part 10 of Ananda, Guardian of the Dhamma. The Last Days of the Buddha. At this moment, Ananda, who usually was so circumspect, had lost his mindfulness, which previously had happened only in negligible matters. Otherwise, our whole eon would have taken quite a different turn. Could it be that at just that moment, Ananda was so absorbed in the pleasure of being in close companionship with the Buddha that the master's hint failed to register on his mind? Was it perhaps just his very attachment to the Buddha's company, reinforced by the enchanting evening hour and the peaceful forest, that prevented him from responding in the way proper to such deep attachment, a response that would have accorded with his deepest wishes for a longer life for the Blessed One? If Mara had not intervened, Ananda would have asked the Buddha to accept the burden of a prolonged life, and the Buddha would have consented out of compassion for the world. But Mara, afraid that innumerable beings would have thereby escaped his clutch, hastened to prevent this, and the course of history was sealed. This scene, so poignant and suggestive, belongs to the mysteries of the Pali Canon, and one could puzzle about it endlessly. But let us continue the account. The Buddha dismissed Ananda, who seated himself under a nearby tree, and started meditating. Then Mara appeared before the Buddha and reminded him of a promise made 45 years before, immediately after his enlightenment. Mara had then requested the Buddha to enter final nibbana and not to teach, but the Buddha had replied that he would not die until he had thoroughly trained and instructed the monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen, and the holy life was well established. Now, however, all that had been accomplished, and Mara had come to remind him that it was time to fulfill his promise. The Buddha replied, "Do not trouble yourself, evil one. Before long the parinibbana of the Tathagata will come out. 3 months from now the Tathagata will pass utterly away. Then the Blessed One, with mindfulness and clear comprehension, relinquish his will to live on. And just as he did so, the earth quaked and trembled, and thunder resounded in the heavens. Such was the powerful effect on the natural elements when he renounced them as a basis for life. When Ananda became aware of the earthquake and thunder, he asked the Buddha for their cause. The Buddha replied that there were 8 reasons for earthquakes. The first is an occasion when great forces move. The second is when a monk or Brahmin possessing supernormal powers reaches a certain kind of meditation. The last 6 are the conception, birth, enlightenment, the first teaching of the Dhamma, the relinquishing of the will to live, and the final nibbana of a Buddha. One can see from this how deep is the connection between a Buddha, the highest of all beings, and the whole cosmos. The expositions that follow on the eight kinds of assemblies, the 8 fields of mastery, and the 8 liberations seem to be a digression. It appears to be one of those occasions for a spontaneously arising discourse. Scholars speak about insertions into the text because at first there were 8 reasons for earthquakes. Then 3 other 8s were brought in. In reality, there is a deeper connection designed to bring Ananda from superficial to the profound to let him know the quickly approaching death of the Buddha in such a way that it would not disturb him. After the Buddha had helped to direct Ananda on the path toward enlightenment, he related how he had told Mara 45 years ago that he would not attain final Nibbana until the Dhamma was well established. Now Mara had appeared before him, and he had told Mara he would live for only another 3 months. Therefore, he had now relinquished the will to live, and that had been the reason for the earthquake. Now, without a moment's hesitation, Ananda begged the awakened one 3 times to remain for the whole eon. But the Buddha replied that the appropriate time for this had lapsed. When Ananda asked for the 3rd time, the Buddha inquired, Do you have faith, Ananda, in the enlightenment of the Tathagata? When Ananda affirmed this, he asked, Why then, Ananda, do you persist against the Tathagata up to the 3rd time? Then the Buddha made it clear to Ananda that he had let the opportunity slip by. The fault is yours, Ananda. Here you have failed inasmuch as you were unable to grasp the plain suggestion given by the Tathagata, and you did not ask him to remain. For if you had done so, Ananda, twice the Tathagata might have declined, but the 3rd time he would have consented. He also reminded Ananda that not only now, but already 15 times previously, he had told him that he could remain for a whole eon, but each time Ananda had remained silent. Finally, the Buddha added his admonition on impermanence. Have I not taught from the very beginning that with all that is dear and beloved, there must be change, separation, and severance of that which is arising, come into being, conditioned, and subject to decay? One cannot bring it about that it will not come to dissolution. Further, it is impossible for a Tathagata to go back on his word. In 3 months' time, he shall attain final Nibbana. Thereupon, he requested Ananda to assemble the monks of the area. He addressed the assembly with the exhortation to learn and practice the path to enlightenment, which he had so clearly taught throughout his ministry, so that this holy life may endure long, for the welfare and happiness of many, out of compassion for the world, for the good, welfare, and happiness of devas and humans. At the end of the discourse, he announced that 3 months from now the Tathagata's parinibbana will take place, and he gave the monks some stanzas for contemplation. My years are now full ripe. The lifespan left is short. Departing, I shall leave you, relying on myself alone. Be earnest then, monks, mindful and pure in virtue. With firm resolve, guard your own mind. One who in this Dhamma and discipline dwells in constant heedfulness shall abandon the wandering on in birth and make an end to suffering. The fourth section of the sutta tells of the Buddha resuming his journey after the rain's retreat and declaring that he would not return to Vesali. On the way, he spoke to the monks on the same topics he had expounded earlier. He declared that they had to travel through his long round of rebirths because they had not penetrated four things: a noble one's virtue, a noble one's concentration, a noble one's wisdom, and a noble one's deliverance. And again, as so often on this last journey, he emphasized concentration fortified by virtue and wisdom fortified by concentration. At the next resting place, he explained to the monks how they should act if someone purported to quote his words. One should remember these sentences and look for verification in the Vinaya or confirmation in the suttas. If one could not find them there, then one would have to come to the conclusion that it had been wrongly learned by that person, and one should reject it. This admonition was extremely important for the faithful transmission of his words and has been the reason why even to this day one can distinguish between the Buddha's own words and post-canonical or inauthentic text. After this, the Buddha journeyed to the province of the Mallas, the warrior clan nearest to the Himalayas. It is this possible that in the meantime he had also been in Savatthi, because it was there that the news of Sariputta's death reached him. In the land of the Mallas, the neighbors of the Sakyans, the goldsmith Kunda invited him and the monks for a meal. The chief food item was a dish called Sukara Madhava. The Buddha asked the goldsmith to serve this dish only to him and offered the other items to the monks. Then he asked the remainder of the food be buried, for I do not see in all this world anyone who could eat it and entirely digest it except the Tathagata alone. After the meal, the Buddha became ill with a severe attack of dysentery, but he bore this illness with equanimity and was not deterred from continuing on his journey. Along the way, he told Ananda to spread his robe as he was exhausted and wished to rest. Then he then asked Ananda to bring him some water from the nearby stream, but Ananda said he would prefer to bring water from the river because the stream had been churned up by many carts. After the Buddha had repeated his request 3 times, however, the obedient Ananda went to the stream and saw that in the meantime, through a miracle, the water had become clear. Here is the quote of the day. Should your Should you find a wise critic to point out your faults, follow him as you would a guide to hidden treasure. May every living being, our minds is one and radiant with light. Share the fruits of peace, with heart of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can fight in giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion and wisdom and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light breathe the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha.